Thank you so much for joining me. And I am in my house in Mexico, and there's a whole lot of action happening. There's construction. The water guys are coming by and shouting, "Agua, agua." So you might hear all kinds of things, but hopefully you can hear me. And oh, good. I'm glad that you're here. Yeah. And again, I'll do my best to post the recording later. So I wanted to share with you about Ayurveda for travel. I put a question out there last week about, what do you want me to talk about? And there were a lot of requests, and one really cute one. How did you fit a toaster in your backpack on your last trip? So I thought this would be a great topic to share with you, and it is a topic that I am very passionate about because I am a little bit of a travel addict and have done a lot of traveling. I've been very fortunate in my life to see a lot of the world, and I've done a lot of very minimalistic travels. Two trips, well, one trip for sure, almost the whole second part of almost a year with just like a little backpack. So I have figured out how to fit a ton of stuff into my bag, and even on little weekend trips or local trips, to use the tools of Ayurveda to stay balanced. So what I'm sharing with you today is not, there's no like Ayurveda for travel ancient text. This is sort of how I've figured out how to apply these principles when I travel to help me to stay balanced. And I know that you guys know how imbalancing travel can be, and that's why you asked me to talk about this very important topic. So, I want to keep it really simple too, and please ask questions. We'll talk for a little while, and as questions arise, you can put them in there, and I'll do my best to answer. The first thing that I wanted to say about travel is it is very Vata aggravating. Vata being the principle of movement, of irregularity. So when we travel, there's both movement at a very literal level. You're traveling in a car, you're traveling on a plane, and also irregularity. You're eating different food, you're having a different schedule, you're sleeping in a different bed. So these factors increase Vata because it is naturally irregular. It is naturally, doesn't have its own natural rhythm. It needs to have a rhythm in order to keep it balanced. So that's why when we travel, we often feel what I like to call Vata deranged, and everything gets a little bit out of whack. Very common with plane flights, for example, is to come off of the plane feeling bloated, gassy, constipated, anxious, and dry skin, chapped lips, because that very act of flying on the plane with all of its movement, with all of that dryness, it aggravates the Vata dosha. So what we're doing with these tools of Ayurveda is trying to keep Vata dosha, that energy of movement, balanced. Now, with that, the first most important thing about traveling is to just let go. Because when you're traveling, it is inevitable that you are going to be, that your routine is going to be disturbed. So we have to let go. And I know that people can really tighten and really get obsessive about the rules of Ayurveda, and that is not the Ayurvedic way. Ayurveda is such a beautiful science. It teaches us to not go in any extreme direction one way or the other. It's all about the middle path, the middle way. So while we have all of these beautiful rules and guidelines to help us in our daily life, we have to know when to let them go. We have to know where to soften. And when we travel, we have to soften. We are not going to be able to follow our regular rhythm. We're not going to be able to eat our regular food. So that is my first advice to you, especially for those of you who are newer to Ayurveda. There's a tendency when we first start learning to get really obsessive and to do things too strictly. And then as years go by, it kind of softens. So please, as you're traveling, know like these are tips to help you, but there's no possible way to always follow your beautiful little Ayurvedic life that you follow at home. Okay, so that's my first tip. All is good. No pasa nada when you travel. Second thing is, at the same time, because nothing is black and white, is to try, despite not having routine, despite everything being shaken up with travel, to still try to maintain a little bit of routine in two areas. One is eating around the same time every day. Two is sleeping around the same time every day. These are, I would say, the two most important factors for keeping Vata balanced in general in our everyday life, to give the body a little bit of a schedule. Your body is designed to live on a schedule, on a rhythm, and all of your bodily functions act on a rhythm. So your body expects rhythm from you. You know, you have to be a friend with your body. You have to give it things that are harmonious with its natural way of being, like a little bit of rhythm. So when we travel, even if our food is totally different from, our usual diet, still eating breakfast, say around 8 or 9, still having lunch between 12 and 1, still having dinner between 6 and 7, some good daily rhythm will really help you, because your body is used to that rhythm. Your body is expecting food at that time. And then your body will be better nourished if you eat food still around those same times. I try my best to follow this when I travel, and I pay attention to knowing what time it is, to kind of paying attention to the clock and making sure that I still eat at decent times. It's when we start eating at really erratic times that things can get really thrown off. We start to get bloated, we start to get gassy, we may get constipated, and your digestive fire is your powerhouse. This is the source of everything else functioning in your body. So we always want to live in a way which is supporting this powerhouse. Then when it comes to sleep, again, sometimes it's going to be impossible to sleep around the same time every day, but we can try, right? We can make an effort, we can try our best to still go to sleep early and to wake up early. Those of you who have been studying with me or who have been studying Ayurveda know that this is the recommendation of Ayurveda, to go to bed early and to wake up early, because it creates a sort of proper flow with the sun and the moon that supports our body and our mind and our energy. So while we may not be able to exactly follow it, to at least attempt, go to bed by 10 or 11. And often we do have control over these things. So this is one of the areas that I really emphasize, again, when I travel. Eating around the same time every day, still sleeping early, waking up early, having some kind of Vata stabilizing rhythm. I hope that makes sense. All right, I wanted to talk a little bit about flying, and I mentioned how Vata aggravating flying is. The movement, the dryness, the coldness, and there are no factors on the plane that are really supporting our well-being, especially now that you have to wear a face mask. You can't even breathe semi-fresh air. So when we fly, Ayurveda can be really, really helpful for keeping that Vata dosha balanced. I recommend the day before flying, or even better the day before flying rather than the day of flying, and also the day after landing, especially when you're doing a really long flight, like I always do this if I'm going to India or going to Asia, somewhere far. Do an Apianga. Apianga is oil massage, and we can do this ourselves. So I have a few videos in my feed of how to do Apianga. It is one of the most Vata pacifying activities that we can do. Basically, you warm some oil. You can use sesame oil in a colder month. You can use coconut oil in a warmer month, and then you massage your body head to toe. And you massage with a downward stroke. because this downward movement supports the proper direction of the movement of Vata. So we're going down towards the fingers, down towards the toes in a rhythmic movement. Remember I said Vata is irregular. So when we give it regularity in a movement like this, here's the whatever they're doing out there. I hope you can still hear. It helps to stabilize the Vata dosha. And also, of course, you're putting oil all over your body, so it's very unctuous. It's very what we call in Ayurveda snigdha. It's very juicifying, and the very act of flying on a plane is drying, and you feel it, right? You get off the plane and you're like dried up like a piece of popcorn with dry lips and dry skin. So we do the Apianga the day before, we do the Apianga the day after landing. I even take it a step further. When I go to India, because it's possible, because it's available, I'll usually book in and see a practitioner. Or you could do it in LA, where there are a lot of Ayurvedic massage therapists. Book it in, get a proper Apianga, and after your Apianga, do a nice hot shower. I mentioned this the other day in my stories. This dual process of oleation and sudation is called snehana swedana. And that oleation and sudation together are very Vata pacifying, and you'll feel it. You do your Apianga, you take a shower, warm shower, and then it's like you're a new person. And you can even see it on your face. You'll feel amazing and so much better. So that's one thing we can do. Continuing with the topic of oil, just before flying, and I mean, I'm a little bit obsessive in this region. I take a little bottle of oil with me on the flight, and I get on the plane, or I do it in the bathroom before I go, and I put oil on the soles of my feet, and then I put on socks, I put oil on my ears, and I put oil here, this very top point of the head in between the crown and the hairline. There's a special Marma, a special point there. So a little oil in these points is again really Vata pacifying. And you have socks on, you don't need to worry about getting your shoes oily or whatever. If I'm on a long haul flight, I'll reapply my oil too. Again, so Vata pacifying. The night before flying, again, especially on a really long travel, or even if you're going on a really long road trip, if you have a tendency towards constipation when you travel because of that dryness, because of that increase of Vata, this is a really good practice for you. The night before, have some warm milk. Warm milk is naturally Vata pacifying, it's naturally snigdha unctuous. If you don't drink cow's milk, you can have some warm almond milk or even flax milk if you don't have pitta problems, because it's more oily. And then add some oil. Add a teaspoon of ghee or add a teaspoon of coconut oil and drink that. And that's going to bring some internal oleation to keep your cute little colon lubricated to prevent constipation. So that. Okay, other tricks that I've learned. I always bring a thermos with me. If you're an Ayurveda person, you have a thermos. And if you don't yet, it's time to get one because your thermos is your best friend. So I always bring an empty thermos with me on the plane, and then I'll go to Starbucks and I'll ask them to fill it up with hot water. And they're very kind. They always do it. Maybe I'll order like a tea or whatever. So then I get on the plane and I have some hot water with me. And I'll ask the flight attendants for a cup. And then I'll pour that hot water into the cup and I drink that. Otherwise, you're going to end up drinking very cold water or iced water. The reason that we don't want to do that is because we're already trying to combat all of this crazy Vata that's happening on the plane. So by sipping warm water, we're pacifying the Vata as well as kindling our dear little, tender digestion that so easily gets vitiated through flying. And just sipping hot water can pacify Vata. Have you felt that before? If you feel really ungrounded, if you feel really, it's like this, when your energy is really buzzy, kind of all over the place in the air. Those are all Vata feelings. And just by sipping a little bit of hot water, the Vata comes down. So that's one of my other tricks. Another is to be uber super prepared to help myself to sleep. So I'll bring an eye mask, I bring earplugs, I bring wool socks, I bring extra warm clothes, usually like a wool long sleeve shirt, because again, we're trying to protect Vata, and all of the cold increases Vata. And you know, on planes it's usually really cold. So doing anything to keep the body warm, and then in any way helping ourselves to get some rest is amazing. I learned from this really beautiful yogi in India. He was giving a class on traveling, and he said, when you're on a plane, even if you can't sleep, just put an eye mask, put your earplugs, close your eyes, and rest for 8 hours, which I know is a long time. Probably most of us aren't going on flights like this very often or anymore for the time being, but close your eyes and rest, and you will receive the rejuvenation even if you can't sleep. And I have personally tried this, and it's sort of my new way of flying, rather than watching movies, rather than, you know, stimulating all of the sense organs, to just shut down. And you can just chill. We have that capacity to just relax without stimulation, and it really does help. So, where are your questions, by the way? I don't know if I'm maybe not seeing them somewhere, but let me know if you have any as they arise. Then when it comes to food, like I said, we gotta let it go, because you can't be too strict when you travel. But a few little things that I've learned that I find really helpful, aside from continuing to try to eat around the same time every day, one is to eat warm food. This is my navigating word when I'm choosing something on menu. I kind of try to forget about what the food actually is, and more so look for warm, and also, let's say, juicy, snigdha, unctuous, a little oily, a little bit wet. So food which is going to be lighter on digestion versus raw or cold. Okay, good question. Then also packing food, you know, this requires some preparation, and I'm realizing as I'm speaking, like, all the little efforts that I make to travel well, but they're worth it, because you get off of your flight or you finish your road trip and you don't feel like you're completely destroyed. I'll usually pack a lunch and a dinner for my travel. So I'm not making an enormous amount of food, but at least for 1 or 2 meals, bringing it with me on the plane. And the security guys, man, they love this joke. They always want to check my food. They open it up and then they say, like, oh, I'm going to have to confiscate this. They love that one. But you can bring like a khichdi, or you can bring a quinoa, or you can bring like a little pasta salad. Those are kind of my 3 favorites. And then a snack pack with dates, with some soaked almonds, with some walnuts, maybe some fresh fruit like an apple, something that's not going to get smushed in your bag, so that you have some of your own food to eat on the plane. It really, really helps. Rather than, if you look at what they give you on the plane, dry pretzels, dry chips, dry cookies, really cold food. The airplane food is usually Vata provoking. Like the vegetarian option is always chickpeas, which is, you know, the most Vata provoking bean. So we can help ourselves by taking a little preparative action. Okay, so last couple things I wanted to share, and then I'll answer your questions. With one of your amazing questions, how did I pack a toaster into my bag? So I know it's a bit nuts, but I'll bring a toaster, I'll bring a hot plate, I'll bring a pot, a spoon, spices, dal, rice, a bowl, a fork, whatever I need to make at least one home-cooked meal a day if I'm traveling for a long period of time, like 5 days or 7 days. Or I'll choose an Airbnb versus a hotel or somewhere with a little kitchenette so that I can make something. Or I'll bring, when I went to Egypt, I brought instant oatmeal packets and a collapsible kettle that I got on Amazon, along with some cinnamon and some dates. And then I made instant oatmeal in my hotel room just to have one meal in the day that was really simple, that was home cooked. Hi, nice to see you, Arjun. So that's something that I always try to do when I'm traveling. And last thing, when you travel, you end up eating out a lot. That's the nature of travel. So how do you navigate all of this restaurant food? Usually restaurant food gives us way bigger portions, especially in, the US, than we need. So when we travel, also when we fly, we can support our body by just eating a little bit less. That restaurant food tends to be heavy because restaurants are trying to make your food really tasty. They want to make you happy. So they use more butter, they use more fat, they use more sugar. They use things that are a bit heavier for the system. And when we eat just a smaller quantity of those foods, we're better able to digest that meal as a whole. So that's a really, really simple tip for when you're traveling. Okay, I see some questions. Okay, so any advice on a road trip with a family who loves super cold cars? Well, we have to keep harmony with our family, right? So if you know you're a Vata dominant person, or if you know you have that tendency to get colds, plan accordingly in your life, especially if you're a Vata person or you have a lot of Vata imbalances. You need to stay warm. So always have a sweater. Those of you who live in California, you probably know that this is like the motto to live by. You always bring a sweater or a sweatshirt with you wherever you go because it's going to get cold at some point. So bring your little wool, bring a wool sweater, maybe bring something to put around your neck or have an undershirt that tucks into your pants, because by keeping your belly warm, by keeping your neck warm, also by keeping your feet warm, you'll help to protect Vata. Would you do those same techniques when traveling long distance by car? Yes, the same techniques, for example, the Apianga, putting oil on your feet, on your ears, on the top of your head, are amazing. I was just mentioning flying because it's super Vata aggravating, but this will help too. Even if you're just going, for like a little road trip and you want to do an Apianga, it will really support your body. What do you eat on long haul flights? I think I answered that one. I bring my own food, and then I'll usually, for example, like going to India, it's super far. It's 24, 30 hours from the US. And I think the flight, usually I would fly to Dubai. I think the flight there is 14 hours. So get to the airport and get food in the airport, which is usually better than airplane food. And then you navigate using that warm rule. So look for something warm. Rather than say like a cold wrap from the cold bar, whatever you want to call it, the fridge thing. They always sell those like cold wraps or cold salad. I'd rather eat something like pizza. I'll get a pizza or something which is warm because it's actually a little more less Vata provoking for the system, and then I'll make sure not to overeat, not to overdo it. All right, any other questions? I'm so glad you all joined me. All right, amazing. So happy to see you. I hope these tips are helpful. They're easy. And the cool thing about Ayurveda is that simple things work. So these simple little tips can be really transformational. So please don't think like, oh no, Julie didn't give me any of the magic stuff. I promise, this is the magic. The simple stuff is the magic in Ayurveda. So For all of the women who joined today, if you want to join me for Learn Your Body, my 12-week online course, today's the last day for the early bird discount. Also, I just wanted to share with you that I have a 4-week cooking immersion coming up too that I teach with Claire Ragozzino, who recently published an absolutely beautiful cookbook that I highly recommend. And we're teaching that course in the middle of September. You'll love it. It's the 3rd time we're doing it. So all of that's on my website. And I will see you all very soon. I really appreciate hearing what you'd like to learn about. So you're welcome to message me, because my platform is to share with you, and I don't want to share things that aren't of interest. So please, please, please let me know. Thinking of joining your course later this year, do you recommend it for a busy working mom like me, worried about cooking for my family as well as myself and being overwhelmed? Not sure which course you're mentioning. The Learn Your Body, for sure, for sure. The way that we implement it is step by step, so you're not going to get overwhelmed. And actually, these things are really going to support you if you're a busy working mom. The cooking course as well, we teach you how to make simple food. And you can take that to a crazy, creative, complicated level, or you can just keep it really simple. I recommend joining. All right, everyone, see you soon. Thank you again for joining. Trying to figure out